Hey, I'm Helen Harper, the daughter of one of the richest men in our country. You've probably heard of my last name, right? Anyway, for those who haven't yet had the good fortune to meet me, I'll start from far away. My family deeply valued the patriarchal structure of society, because of which they kept telling me all my life to find the perfect husband. My father, Jonathan Harper, stood at the end of the room, his presence as imposing as the portraits of our ancestors that lined the walls. "Helen, come here," he called, his voice echoing through the vast hall. I approached, my steps echoing softly. "Yes, father?" He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "You do understand your responsibilities as a Harper, don't you?" I nodded, knowing exactly where this was leading. "To uphold the family name and legacy," I recited, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "And part of that," he continued, "is making a suitable match. You're not getting any younger, Helen." I bristled at his words. "I'm only 20, father, and I have other interests." He waved a hand dismissively. "Your jewelry making is a quaint hobby, but it's time you focused on what truly matters. Your mother and I have been speaking with the Hamiltons. Their son, Edward." I couldn't help but interrupt. Edward Hamilton, the one who thinks the height of conversation is discussing his golf handicap. "Helen!" My mother, Elizabeth, swept into the room, her tone sharp. "Show some respect. The Hamiltons are a respected family. Their lineage is almost as distinguished as ours." I turned to her, frustration mounting. "Mother, I don't want to marry for lineage or wealth. I want—" "What you want is a fantasy," she cut me off. "This is about preserving our status and ensuring the Harper legacy continues." I felt trapped, the weight of generations bearing down on me. But my dreams— "Enough, Helen," my father's voice boomed. "You will meet with Edward. That's final." As they walked away discussing arrangements, I stood there, feeling more like a piece of property than their daughter. My dreams of a life filled with creativity and passion for jewelry design seemed to fade with each step they took. That evening, alone in my room, I looked out at the sprawling estate grounds, a world of privilege that felt more like a prison. I whispered to myself, there has to be more to life than this. As I grew from a child into a young woman, the expectations of my family's wealth and status loomed ever larger, shaping my daily life into a series of obligations and societal performances. It was in this gilded but stifling world that I first encountered the relentless parade of suitors, marking the beginning of a chapter filled with unwanted courtships and the pressures of an arranged marriage. I remember it like it was yesterday. The grand hall of our estate was aglow with the soft light of chandeliers, casting a golden hue over everything and everyone. But to me, it felt more like a stage where I was forced to play a role I never auditioned for. The air was filled with the murmur of guests, the clinking of glasses, and the occasional burst of laughter, a symphony of social niceties. "Darling, stand up straight," my mother whispered, nudging me gently. Her eyes scanned the room like a hawk, assessing each young man who walked through the door. I sighed, shifting uncomfortably in my dress. "Mother, why must we go through this charade? I have no interest in these boys." "Helen, this is tradition," she replied, her tone laced with a mix of frustration and desperation. "One of these young men could be your future husband. It's about securing our family's future." I rolled my eyes, but before I could respond, Father joined us, his face beaming with pride. "Ah, look at my beautiful daughter. Gentlemen, you are in for a treat tonight." As the boys lined up to greet me, each one looked more insufferable than the last. Ruffled shirts, chins raised arrogantly, they were like peacocks, preening for attention. The first suitor stepped forward, a boy not much older than me, with a rehearsed smile. "Miss Harper, it is a pleasure to meet you. I am Charles, son of Lord and Lady Beaumont. I extended my hand for a polite handshake, but inside, I cringed. The pleasure is all mine, Charles. As he moved aside for the next suitor, my father leaned in, whispering, "He's a good match, Helen. The Beaumonts have significant holdings in the north." I barely listened, my attention caught by the next boy in line. He was clumsily trying to smooth down his unruly hair and nearly tripped over his own feet as he approached. "Hello, Miss Harper. I'm George," he stammered, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Despite myself, I felt a pang of sympathy. "Hello, George," I said, offering him a small smile. "I hope you're enjoying the evening." He nodded eagerly before being whisked away by his overzealous mother. As the evening wore on, the procession of suitors seemed endless. Each interaction was more tedious than the last. I felt like a bird trapped in a gilded cage, my wings clipped by tradition and expectation. Finally, seizing a moment of respite, I turned to my parents. "I need some air," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother looked at me, her expression softening for a moment. "All right, dear, but don't be long." I nodded and slipped away, the cool night air embracing me like a long-lost friend. Ever since I was a child, my world was filled with silences and voids that only drawing and sculpting could fill. It was in the quiet of my room, away from the endless parade of suitors and the distant presence of my parents, that I found my true self. One day, as I was lost in the intricate details of a clay sculpture, my mother walked in, her heels clicking a sharp rhythm on the hardwood floor. "Helen, darling," she began, her voice laced with her usual mix of critique and faint praise. "What are you doing, holed up here?" I didn't look up, focusing on the curve of the sculpture's arm. "Creatin', mother. What else?" She sighed, a soft rustle of silk and impatience. "Honestly, Helen, you could spend your time in more ladylike pursuits, like preparing for the Hendersons' gala next week." I finally glanced up, meeting her gaze. "I'd rather create beauty than parade around in it." For a moment, I thought she'd argue, but then her eyes softened as they lingered on my sculpture. "You know, you do have a gift. It's quite exquisite." Surprised by her rare compliment, I murmured, "Thank you." That evening, as the sun cast a golden hue across the gardens, my mother introduced me to Julie, a woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Julie is an accomplished jeweler," my mother said, a hint of pride in her voice. "She's here to help you hone your skills." I extended my hand, feeling a spark of excitement. "Pleased to meet you, Julie." Julie's handshake was firm, her gaze appraising. "Your mother showed me some of your work, Helen. You have a natural talent. I look forward to seeing what you can do with metals and gems." As we walked towards my makeshift studio, I couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. This was the beginning of something new, something mine. Julie watched me work, her comments sharp but insightful. "You have an eye for detail, but remember, jewelry is not just art, it's wearable art. It must be as functional as it is beautiful." I nodded, absorbing her words. "I want to create pieces that tell a story, that carry a piece of the wearer's soul." She smiled, a glint of approval in her eyes. "Then let's begin your true journey, Helen. Let's create not just jewelry, but legacies." Julie wasn't just a mentor. She was the gateway to a world I never knew I could be part of. Under her guidance, I began to see jewelry not just as accessories, but as expressions of art, of individuality. One afternoon, in the sun-drenched studio that my parents had begrudgingly converted for me, Julie and I were bent over a sketch of my latest design. "This is intricate, Helen," Julie commented, her eyes tracing the lines of the drawing. "But don't you think this part here might be a bit too delicate for silver?" I leaned in, considering her point. "You're right, as usual. What do you suggest?" Let's try it with platinum. It's stronger, she proposed, her fingers pointing gracefully at the sketch. As we discussed the materials, I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude. Julie, I can't thank you enough. I would have been lost in a sea of societal expectations if not for this, for you. She smiled, a warm, knowing smile. Helen, your talent was just waiting to be discovered. I'm just nudging it in the right direction. Just then, my mother breezed into the room, her presence like a sudden gust of wind. Helen, darling, I hope you're not too busy. We have guests coming over, and I need you to— Mother, I'm working, I interrupted, a hint of frustration in my voice. This is important to me. She looked at the sketches scattered around, then at Julie. I still don't understand why you're wasting time on this hobby. You could be attending social events, meeting someone. Mother, this hobby is my passion. It's going to be my future, I said firmly, feeling Julie's supportive gaze on me. My mother sighed, her gaze softening. Well, at least let Julie help you get ready. You can't greet our guests looking like this. Julie stood up, diplomatically intervening. Mrs. Harper, why don't I help Helen finish up here and then I'll make sure she's presentable for your guests. Fine, my mother conceded, leaving as abruptly as she had arrived. Once she was gone, I turned to Julie, a bit embarrassed. I'm sorry you had to see that. Julie chuckled lightly. Helen, it's nothing I haven't seen before. Now let's get back to this. We have a masterpiece to create. As my skills in jewelry design flourished under Julie's mentorship, my collection gained acclaim, fueling a newfound confidence within me. This surge of self-assurance and recognition was the catalyst that led me to take a bold step forward, opening my own jewelry store, Treasury, a physical manifestation of my dreams and independence. From the very first moment I stepped into the space that would become Treasury, my heart surged with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The walls, bare and echoing, were soon to be adorned with my creations, each piece a fragment of my soul. As I envisioned the displays of sparkling jewelry, my mentor, Julie, walked in, her eyes reflecting the pride I felt. I can't believe it, Helen. This is all yours, Julie said, her voice tinged with awe. I smiled, my heart swelling. It's a dream, Julie. A dream I've had since the first piece I ever made. Julie walked over, placing her hand on my shoulder. You've worked so hard for this. Your parents must be thrilled. I shrugged, a hint of bitterness in my tone. They see the store as another investment, I suppose. But for me, it's a sanctuary. As we discussed the layout, the door chimed, and my mother swept in, her presence filling the room. Helen, darling, this place is quaint. I bristled at her tone but managed a polite smile. It's exactly how I want it, Mother. Minimalist, elegant. She surveyed the room with a critical eye. Well, it needs a bit more sparkle. You are in the jewelry business after all. Julie interjected, her voice diplomatic. Mrs. Harper, Helen has a unique vision. I believe her choices will resonate well with her clientele. Mother turned her gaze to Julie, a flicker of respect in her eyes. I hope you're right. Helen always had a knack for the unconventional. The conversation shifted as my father entered, his demeanor more businesslike. Helen, I've spoken to some contacts. They're interested in your opening night. I nodded, grateful yet overwhelmed. Thank you, Father. I hope to make Treasury more than just a store. I want it to be an experience. He smiled, a rare occurrence. Just remember, it's not just about the art, it's about the sale. The rest of the day was a blur of planning and discussions. As evening approached, Julie and I were left alone in the quiet store. Helen, Julie began, her voice soft, you're embarking on something incredible. Remember, your talent brought you here, not your family name. Her words were the anchor I needed. I know, Julie, and I'm ready. Treasury isn't just a store, it's my statement to the world. As the sun set, casting a golden glow through the windows, I looked around, Treasury, with a sense of pride and accomplishment. This was more than a business venture. It was the manifestation of my dreams, my rebellion against the life preordained for me. Here, I was not just Helen Harper, the heiress. I was Helen Harper, the artist and entrepreneur. My journey was just beginning, and Treasury was the first bold step. I did not yet know that the very next day an unexpected meeting would open a new chapter in my life, far from the glittering world of gems and gold. Ever since I was a child, my life had been a meticulously orchestrated ballet, each step planned, every twirl expected. But life, as I would learn, dances to its own unpredictable tune. This truth revealed itself on an ordinary evening that turned out to be anything but ordinary. I remember the night clearly. My mother had, in her usual fashion, orchestrated an outing for me, her words echoing in my mind. Helen, you need to breathe some fresh air, meet real people. Little did I know, this night would change the course of my life. I walked out of our grand estate, feeling the cool evening air brush against my skin. The sky was a canvas of twinkling stars, each one a distant, fiery world. I thought of capturing this celestial dance in my next jewelry collection. Lost in thought, I didn't hear the taxi arrive. Miss Harper? The driver's voice pulled me back to reality. I nodded and got into the car, my mind still among the stars. The taxi dropped me off at a club, not the kind I was accustomed to. It was vibrant and chaotic, a stark contrast to my structured world. I couldn't bring myself to step inside. Instead, I found solace under a tree, sketching the constellations, when a voice interrupted my solitude. Hello. It was a guy, not much older than me. He had a casual, easy presence about him. Startled, I looked up. Hello, I replied, my voice tinged with caution. I'm Michael, he said, extending his hand, but I didn't take it. Would you like to meet me? His directness was unexpected. My mother sent you, right? I asked, my guard up. What? No, I don't even know your mother, he replied, genuinely confused. Realizing my mistake, I softened a bit. Sorry, just a habit, I said, managing a small smile. We talked, and I found myself enjoying his company. He had a passion for motorcycles and racing, a world so different from mine. Isn't it dangerous? I asked, intrigued. He laughed. Life's too short to play it safe all the time. Sometimes you have to feel the wind in your hair, the adrenaline in your veins. His words struck a chord in me. Wasn't I doing the same with my jewelry, breaking away from the expected, the safe? The night went on, and I found myself opening up to Michael about my world of jewelry and designs. He listened with genuine interest, his eyes reflecting the stars above. You're not like anyone I've ever met, Helen, he said, his voice soft. And you're not like the men my parents parade in front of me, I replied, a smile dancing on my lips. We talked until the stars began to fade, and the first light of dawn painted the sky. It was the first time I felt truly connected to someone who saw me for who I was, not for the Harper name or wealth. As the taxi pulled up to take me home, Michael said, I don't know if we'll ever meet again, but I'm glad we met tonight. Me too, Michael, I said, feeling a twinge of sadness at the thought of not seeing him again. And with that, I stepped into the taxi, looking back at him standing under the tree, a silhouette against the breaking dawn. Little did I know, this chance encounter was just the beginning of a journey that would redefine everything I knew about life, love, and myself. We saw each other more often, but now we met in the lush garden of my family's estate. Surrounded by the embrace of twilight, we lost track of time, and our conversation flowed as freely as the light night breeze. It was here, in this garden, that I truly saw you for who you are," Michael said quietly, his eyes reflecting the starlight. He knelt down in front of me, holding a ring that sparkled like the night sky. "Helen, will you marry me?" My heart raced with joy, and without thinking, I answered, "Yes, Michael, I will. Yes to a future with you. Yes to us." It was a bright morning, the kind that promised new beginnings. I, Helen Harper, stood by the window, watching the garden where Michael and I had spent countless hours talking about everything and nothing. "Today's the day, Helen," Julie's voice broke through my thoughts. She stood at the door, her face beaming with excitement. I turned to her, a smile touching my lips. "Yes, it's hard to believe. I never thought I'd be here getting married." Julie came closer, holding a box in her hands. "I made these for you," she said, opening the box to reveal a pair of exquisitely crafted earrings. "For the bride." "They're beautiful, Julie," I said, touched by her gesture. "Thank you. You've always been more than a mentor to me." Our moment was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Michael peeked in, his eyes finding mine. "Helen, can I have a word?" Julie excused herself, leaving us alone. Michael stepped in, his usual confident demeanor replaced by a hint of nervousness. "Helen," he began, taking my hands in his, "I know this journey hasn't been easy for you, marrying someone like me from a different world." I squeezed his hands gently. "Michael, love isn't defined by wealth or status. It's about finding someone who understands and accepts you. You've given me that." He smiled, relief washing over his face. "I was worried. Your family, your world, it's all so different from mine." I laughed softly. "Isn't that the beauty of it? We bring different pieces to this puzzle called life. You've shown me a world beyond my golden cage." Michael's eyes shone with emotion. "I promise to be there for you, Helen, through every challenge, every joy. You are my world now." "And you are mine," I replied, feeling a sense of completeness. "Let's not keep our guests waiting, shall we?" As we walked hand in hand towards our new life together, I knew that whatever the future held, we would face it together, as partners, as equals. Love had indeed bridged the gap between two different worlds. But our idyllic world was shattered when Claire, a figure from Michael's past and my longtime rival since high school, showed up with a revelation that threatened to destroy everything we'd built. Her sudden appearance with news that would test the very foundations of our relationship marked the beginning of a tumultuous period in our lives. The world as I knew it began to crumble the day Claire stormed into my office, her face twisted in a triumphant smirk. I remember sitting there, sketches of my latest collection spread out before me, when she slapped a photograph on my desk. "That's Michael's child I'm carrying, Helen," Claire announced, her voice dripping with a vindictive glee. I stared at the ultrasound photo, a hollow laugh escaping my lips. "Michael is infertile, Claire. This melodrama of yours is wasted on me." Her face contorted in anger. "Do a DNA test then, Mrs. Harper. You'll see." After she stormed out, leaving a trail of cold dread behind her, I couldn't shake off the unease. That night, I confronted Michael. The air in our living room was thick with tension as I held the photo out to him. "Is this true, Michael? Is this what we've come to?" My voice was barely a whisper, but it carried all the weight of my shattered trust. Michael's eyes, once so full of warmth, now darted away from mine. "Helen, Just tell me the truth," I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. He looked at me, a deep sadness in his eyes. "I made a mistake, Helen, but it's not what you think. Save it, Michael. I don't know what to believe anymore." I felt a tear roll down my cheek, betraying the turmoil inside. The following weeks were a blur of doctor's visits and hushed arguments. The final blow came when Michael's HIV diagnosis was confirmed. I remember sitting in the sterile doctor's office, the words echoing in my mind. "It's treatable, but," the doctor had said, his voice trailing off. Michael sat beside me, a shell of the man I married. "Helen, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen." His apologies, his regrets, they all sounded so hollow. I felt a rage building inside me, a burning mix of betrayal and hurt. "How could you do this to us, Michael? To me?" My voice was shaking. "You've not only lied but brought this disease into our lives." He reached out, trying to take my hand, but I pulled away. "I need time, Michael. I need space." That night, I lay awake in our bed, alone for the first time in years. The room felt larger, emptier. I thought about the Michael I fell in love with, and how far we had strayed from those two young people who thought they had the world at their feet. The following days, our house felt like a tomb. Words left unsaid hung heavily between us, until one morning I found him packing his bags. "Where will you go?" I asked, not sure if I wanted to know the answer. "I don't know, Helen, but I can't stay here. Not like this." He looked at me, his eyes searching for forgiveness I wasn't ready to give. As he walked out the door, a part of me wanted to call him back, to rewind time and find the moment where it all went wrong. But some things, once broken, can never be put back together. Reflecting on this phase of my life, now tinged with the finality of our divorce, brings a complex mix of emotions. Discovering Michael's HIV diagnosis was a profoundly painful moment, but the subsequent revelation that he had lied to me about being infertile added a deeper layer of betrayal to our already strained relationship. In the midst of our struggles with conception, Mikhail had fabricated a story of infertility. It was a desperate attempt to shield both of us from the harsh realities of his condition, driven by fear and shame. This lie, crafted to hide his HIV status, was his way of trying to protect our relationship from societal prejudices and perhaps to protect himself from facing the truth. At the time, all I could feel was the sting of betrayal. The man I had loved, trusted, and most importantly, married, had kept from me a truth so fundamental that it shook the very core of our relationship. His deceit about infertility, a cover for his HIV, was a misguided effort to preserve what we had, but it only served to deepen the hurt and the sense of betrayal. Our divorce, though a painful conclusion, became an inevitable outcome. The trust that once bound us was irreparably broken, leaving us to go our separate ways, forever changed by the secrets and lies that had undone our union. The shimmer of the gems in my workshop seemed dimmer, reflecting my inner turmoil. As I sat there, surrounded by the tools and stones that once brought me joy, I felt a deep sense of loss. The room was quiet, save for the occasional clink of metal as I aimlessly moved things around on my desk. There was a gentle knock on the door. "Helen." It was Julie's voice, tinged with concern. "Come in, Julie," I replied without looking up. She walked in, her steps soft but determined. "Helen, you've been in here for hours. You haven't touched anything. Is everything all right?" I finally raised my head, meeting her eyes. I don't know where to start, Julie. After everything with Michael, it feels like my world has turned upside down." Julie pulled up a chair beside me. "I understand it's hard, Helen, but you're not alone. She gestured around the room. "This is your world too. Your creations, your passion." A sad smile touched my lips. "I used to find so much joy in this. Now, it just reminds me of what I've lost." "You haven't lost your talent, Helen, or your drive," Julie said firmly. "You are more than what happened with Michael. You are an artist, a creator. That hasn't changed." Her words stirred something in me. I glanced at the half-finished piece on my desk. I just feel so betrayed, not just by Michael, but by life. Julie reached out, placing her hand over mine. It's okay to feel that way, but don't let it define you. You have so much to offer, Helen. I looked at the ring I was working on. It was supposed to be part of a new collection I had planned before. My world came crashing down. I guess I've been avoiding this, avoiding facing the fact that I need to move on. And moving on doesn't mean forgetting or ignoring your pain, Julie said gently. It means embracing the future, with all its uncertainties and possibilities. I picked up the ring, turning it over in my fingers. I suppose you're right. I can't let one person's actions destroy what I've built. That's the spirit, Julie smiled. Now, why don't we finish this piece together? Consider it a symbol of a new beginning. As we worked side by side, the familiar rhythm of crafting jewelry began to soothe my troubled heart. Each gem I set, each piece I polished, felt like a step towards healing. The act of creating something beautiful from raw materials reminded me of my own journey. Look at that, Julie said, admiring the finished ring. It's stunning. I held the ring up to the light, watching it sparkle. It is, isn't it? It feels good to create again. Julie nodded. You're rebuilding, Helen. One day at a time, and remember, I'm here for you, every step of the way. I smiled, a genuine smile this time. Thank you, Julie, for everything. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd still be brilliant, she quipped, but maybe a little less fun. We both laughed, and in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. The journey ahead would be long and perhaps difficult, but I knew I wasn't alone. And with each piece of jewelry I created, I would weave a little more of my newfound strength into it. I was picking up the pieces of my life, ready to shape them into something new, something even more beautiful. As I put the final touches on the last piece of my comeback collection, the weight of the past seemed to lift, leaving a space filled with newfound determination and clarity. Stepping into my workshop, the sanctuary where my creativity knew no bounds, I was ready to embrace the next chapter, a testament to my resilience and the artistry that had always been my truest companion. I stood in my workshop, the treasury, surrounded by the glint of precious metals and the sparkle of gemstones. The air was filled with the familiar scent of metal polish and wax, a scent that had become a balm to my soul over the years. The past months had been a whirlwind of emotions, but here among my creations, I found peace. Helen, these new designs are simply breathtaking. Julie's voice broke through my reverie. She stood beside me, her eyes reflecting the myriad of colors from the jewelry on the table. I smiled at her, feeling a warmth in my heart. Thank you, Julie. I couldn't have done it without your guidance, I said, my voice tinged with gratitude. This collection, it's a new beginning for me. Julie nodded, understanding the unspoken words. You've come a long way, Helen, not just as a designer but as a person. I'm proud of you. The door to the workshop opened and my father stepped in. His presence still commanded attention, but the dynamics between us had changed. Helen, I heard about the new collection. It's making quite the buzz, he said, his eyes scanning the room filled with my work. Dad, I began, turning towards him. I wanted to thank you for trusting me with the family business and for believing in me. He looked at me, a softness in his eyes that I had rarely seen. You've earned it, Helen. You're not just my daughter, you're a remarkable businesswoman and artist. I felt a surge of pride. I've learned that life is more than just wealth and status. It's about passion, integrity, and creating something meaningful. My father nodded. And you've done just that. Your mother and I, we're sorry for the pressure we put on you. We see now that you needed to find your own path. It's been a journey, Dad. But I'm here now, stronger and more determined. Julie interjected. And don't forget, you've become an inspiration to many young women out there. I looked between the two most influential people in my life. I've realized something important. My creations are a part of me, but they don't define me. I am more than my work, more than my failed marriage, more than the Harper name. There was a silence, filled with understanding and respect. So, what's next for Helen Harper? My father asked, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I glanced at the sketches on my table, then back at him. I want to explore. There's so much more to learn, to create. I want to inspire, teach, and maybe even write about my journey. Well, Julie said with a smile, the world better be ready for the next chapter of Helen Harper. I laughed, feeling a sense of freedom and excitement for the future. Yes, the next chapter. One where I write my own story, my own way. As I stood there, surrounded by the symbols of my passion and the people who supported me, I realized that this was just the beginning. The phoenix had risen, and the sky was limitless.